Welcome everyone. Doot 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 doot. I don't know, some sort of tune. It's ITD's Game of the Year. Game of the Year show. Yeah. So every year we do a Game of the Year where we talk about the worst game of the year, and what we think is our Game of the Year, as well as three runner-ups that we thought were really good games. Right? These are all our personal opinions. Whatever you think is your game of the year or worst game of the year, that's again your opinion. These are just our opinions on what we think. Now, for me, before we get started here, I think this year was a little slim pickings on a great game. For me, it was anyway. I think there was a lot of good games this year. Don't get me wrong on that. It was just really hard to pick four games essentially, that game of the year, and then three other games that really tickled my fancy for me, because there was a lot of good games. There just wasn't a lot of games that I was like, man, this is just insane, right? But there was a lot of good games. I played a lot of good games. It's just, again, there wasn't a lot I thought that were like super exceptional compared to previous years where we have had some really just like top contenders, right? So let's go around. First off, we're going to talk about the worst game of the year. This is just, again, this game where, we just found it to be not, very good, and and think that it should be avoided primarily, and just didn't have the greatest of times with it, or just thought it was pretty bad overall. So we'll go around. I don't know who wants to go first. Shane, you want to go first? Which your worst game of the year? What did you pick?
Pat, plug your ears. I'm going with Skull and Bones. I think it was a letdown from the intro to the last second I played. I think it was boring. I think it was not well done. I don't think we ever really had any gameplay issues as far as glitching and things like that, but I think the game was boring. I think nothing about that game felt like anything that was advertised. I felt like being the boat instead of the pirate was a big mistake. I think they should have went with the route of Black Flag. That type of boat play. That's just me. And I know Pat is puckered up, but worst game of the year for me, Skull and Bones.
All right, Pat, what about you, buddy?
Yep. The only reason that one was a disappointment is because you guys were a disappointment in that game. You were bad pirates.
That's what we do.
So for me, I'm gonna have to say, and mine is more of a disappointment than a bad game, right? Because in my list that I initially created, I didn't think any of these games were bad. It's my most disappointing game. And there's multiple reasons for it. I created a list of like 3 games, and it was hard for me to narrow it down because I didn't dislike any of them. I was just disappointed in what I got. And for me, I'm going to say it because I am hyped and because I'm a huge fan, but unfortunately, I'm going to put Dragon Age Veilguard in that list as my most disappointing game of the year. I did play it. I did beat it. And me and Nick have talked about this until we're probably blue in the face, but it's not a Dragon Age game. It's not. It's a good RPG, but I'm expecting Dragon Age. And when I say that, I mean, like, Dragon Age Origin is in my top 5 video games of all time. It just is. And then, and they slowly started to go downhill a little bit. But this one's at the very bottom. Even though it's the most recent, it's still the very bottom game. Like I liked Inquisition better than I liked this one as a Dragon Age game. This game had some cool concepts, but it's not a Dragon Age game. It was not a Dragon Age game for me. And that's why it's my most disappointing. And I really didn't play something this year that I'm like, oh God, I hate this thing. What the heck is this? That I was anticipating or wanting to play. And so for me, it's Dragon Age Veilguard, which for me is mostly like a hype thing. It's not a bad game. It's just not Dragon Age. It's just my most disappointing. I was really hoping for a non-purchased review of the game, right? Because every review had the same title, Back to Form. Everything. I'm like, come on, guys. Did you guys do the whole thing with the news where all the news reported the same thing? You guys were, that's just what they handed you as their review title, Back to Form. No, they were not back to form. They're no longer storytellers, it feels like, because the story to me was like meh. And like, cool, well, the gameplay is cool. I like the new things, but it was my most disappointing game. And it's not a bad game by any means. It's a good game. It's a good RPG. Just, I mean, it's missing classic RPG elements that I thought it needed, like more stat control, more armor control, things like that. And more companion control. And it seems like video games are shrinking the number of companions that you can have. Like, I can only take 2 companions with me in Veilguard. And I could have swore and in Dragon Age Origins and stuff, couldn't you bring 3 companions? Yeah. And so it's like every game is like shrinking.
3,
yeah, every game is shrinking the number of companions that you can bring with you. And I'm like, oh, come on. So for me, that was it. Nick, what about you? What is your most disappointing or your worst game of the year?
Yeah, I had a few in there. I mean, I could definitely see Dragon Age. I beat it too, and I have some of the same complaints with it. The companions were horrible in this one. Like every single one of them was just, and their stories were bad. It was just not good in that aspect. It was good as an action RPG, right, as far as that goes. But everything else around it was just mediocre at best, right? So. But I had a few things on my list. Suicide Squad was also there, but it didn't make the worst or my most disappointed. And I'm sorry, Pat, we'll have to go with this one, but Skull and Bones also made my worst game of the year list.
Or you guys are just bad pirates. I love that game, and I kept wanting to get you guys to come back and play more and more, but you just kept like making excuses. You guys are bad pirates.
Suicide Squad was right there with it. Again, I enjoyed, and it's hard for me not to enjoy playing a game with you guys, regardless of what it is. I mean, we've played some really bad games, but when we play together, it's still fun, right? And so, so Suicide Squad was fun together. And so was Skull and Bones. It was fun together, but like outside of that, it didn't really have much more to offer, right? Either one of them. So that was unfortunate. So
that's funny because Skull and Bones didn't even make it to my most disappointing games of the year, but Suicide Squad was my right under this one that I picked. Yeah. I'm like, because it was like teetering on those two. Yeah. And the only reason Suicide Squad was on there is because it was touted when they pitch a game of service game, you're like, okay, Destiny. That's what I'm thinking. And then when we got to the end, it's like, cool, repeat the same shit you just did every time because you're going to do the same thing over and over and over.
There was no
there was no real end game
versions of the different dimensions or whatever.
Yeah, you had to keep going and killing the same dude. And I'm like, come on, this is not end game. This is just you guys got lazy and just repeated the same freaking crap over. Yeah. And then the whole new characters, how slowly they released all that stuff,
right? And just variations of them, right? Because I think, the first one was Joker.
Right?
Joker they added, but
you had to like do
was horrible.
You couldn't just unlock it. Like you had to like do this whole thing to unlock Joker. I can't remember. It was like
after you paid for it.
It was like Star Wars Galaxy level, Jedi level of unlocking the Jedi and Galaxy's level of unlocking Joker. It was some like long thing that people just didn't want to do, right? They just wanted to play the new character. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That game was definitely
the
example of
on my list is definitely there with it, right? It's definitely in my wheelhouse as a pretty bad game for the year. So all right, so we went around and said everybody's worst game of the year. Let's go with our games of the year. Now we will go over 3 games, starting from I guess number 3 and then going up, eventually getting to our game of the year overall. These again are games that we just really enjoyed this year. Disagree or agree with these entries. That's all up to you. These are just games that we personally really enjoyed and really, really liked throughout the year. Again, that's the whole thing with It Tastes Different or ITD is we're three different gamers with, three different, we like a lot of the same games, but we don't all like the same games, right? There are games that some of us like that others don't. So, there could be one of those games or two of those games or whatever in these lists of games we really enjoyed this year that other people just don't have, right? And there could be the same, who knows? But we'll go around and see what everybody thinks or what everybody's list is. I guess we'll start with the third one, the one on the lowest of the list here. And we'll start again with Shane. What do you got as your number 3?
I have Call of Duty Black Ops 6, story only.
Wow.
Only the
Call
story.
Dudes.
Now, the reason I like the story so much, because it does have a real fun 80s vibes, espionage kind of thing. Plus, it had some really good and unique mission levels. I thought this is the best one they've dropped for a while as far as story goes and creativity. 3 doesn't even go near anywhere near top of anything. It was such a piece of crap. And it might just be because I love a good shooter, and Call of Duty, as far as the shooter aspects, never lets you down. But this time they actually implemented a fun story, an interesting story, a little bit, hammy at times, but the mission sets were just a really fun, experience in the overall. So I won't drag it out, but yeah, I'm surprised as you are. But Call of Duty 6, story only. But I put that in my top 3 because I will probably play through that story again because it was a fun story for me.
All right. Yeah, that is a surprising one. That
I honestly, it was.
I wasn't expecting a Call of Duty.
This year has been thin for great games. Don't get me wrong.
Right. There's been a lot of good games. I think
any of my games on my list this year wouldn't probably hit contention compared to last year. That's where I think the games are this year. They're good, solid games out there, but far as cream of the crop, it's a lot thinner this year. But Call of Duty 6 story mode is a fun game. So, what about you, Pat? What is your number 3? Skull and Bones in it. Skull and Bones in it.
No. So my number 3 runner up to game of the year is I always like in my list. I always have one co-op game in there, and I'll be honest, it was hard for me to put any co-op game in there this year. We had some really good ones, but there are some good single player games that I really enjoyed this year. But I always throw a co-op game in my list because to me, that's what gaming is all about, is playing with your friends, right? I enjoy gaming by myself, but I enjoy gaming with my friends way more than just playing by myself because it's time to BS and crack jokes and be 5 years old again, right? It's to make the day, the week that's been around just go away. Bad week, whatever. And this one was really hard because I had 2 of them, and Skull and Bones was not in there because you guys didn't give me enough time to play it. So I blame both of you for that one, why it's not in the list. But for me, my third runner up was Warhammer 40K Space Marines 2. I enjoyed the hell out of that. I love that game. I love Warhammer, and to be able to share something like that with my friends and to talk about the lore a little bit and explain some of the lore and have fun with it. So that was, for me, it was Warhammer 40K Space Marines 2. I think they did a really good job with this one. And it plays really well. And hell, we even played it again not too long ago, a few nights ago we played to check out the new map and the new bad guy, the new enemy at the end.
And I enjoy it in my list, but I took it out because it was tight. But I'm going to agree with you. It was a fantastic game.
Yep. And so there's other single player games that I would put higher than this in my list, but my list always has to include one co-op game just because to me, that's what gaming is for me. So, and Space Marines 2, and it narrowly beat out Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 was what it just, those were my 2 neck and neck for co-ops that I would put in there. I'm like, one of these games goes in my list. And that's the problem with the Game Awards too, is that anything that comes out in the beginning of the year gets forgotten, and technically anything that gets put out in December gets forgotten because anytime after when they make their announcement. What did they make their announcement on? Was it like
It was the end of November, so.
Well, I mean, we're at the end of November, so
Right.
halfway through November, the middle of November. Yeah. So anything that comes out midway through November, technically anything that comes out in the beginning of November to the end of November gets forgot. Doesn't get added to the list,
right.
And they're no longer valid for the next year. So if you're putting out your game,
Stalker 2 could have been included in there because that one just came. I mean, and I've played a little bit of it. It's pretty good. I don't know if it would get Game of the Year, but it could definitely go in one of the other categories.
But it's it's not going to get included in next year's because it missed the cutoff. It's in 2024, not 2025. So I think Jeff Keighley needs to push the Game of the Year awards to like January. End of January, beginning of February, so you can have a calendar year gaming.
Yeah, it's not technically Game of the Year awards. It's technically Game of the 10 Months award.
Yeah, technically
November, December just don't count.
Right. It's the video game, but they call it the Game of the Year, but there's not a whole year's worth of games. Like they're not going back till December of last year to pull games up for their list. Hell, they're not even going back to January and February for the most part of their category. So that's mine. And like I said, I always like to have a co-op game in there, and that, because that to me is what gaming is. Gaming is hanging out with your friends, having a good time. As a kid, we all gathered in the same room, had LAN parties and all that stuff. And as an adult, we no longer have LAN parties or anything like that, but we still have online game chat, BS, make each other laugh, have a good time. So what about you, Nick? What's your third runner up here? Your third pick, the one that didn't make Game of the Year, your third in the list of games that didn't make Game of the Year.
Well, most of my games in this list are single player because I hate playing with you guys. So
no, Skull and Bones is a testament to that.
Yeah. No, I do want to say I thought about Space Marines as well because I did enjoy the co-op story mode, and then what you do after that. I do enjoy playing that with you guys. It's a lot of fun. We played it like a couple nights ago, and it's still fun to play, and I still enjoy it. So it's a really good co-op game to play with your friends. It reminds me of the old like Gears of War days, right? Playing those old Gears of War games with your buddies and stuff. So, but my number 3 is Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake. I completed that game yesterday, beat it, 40 hours. It's what it took me to beat the story. It's really good. Like, I love Dragon Quest. These guys probably know. Dragon Quest wasn't big over here, but it was more big over in Japan, whereas Final Fantasy was bigger here. I love Final Fantasy, but I also love Dragon Quest. And I haven't played Dragon Quest 3 in a long time. And so being able to play it again, they added new features to it. The graphics look great, and they added all new stuff, some new stuff to this one that's not in any previous versions. And the game overall is just really good. Like, it's just a lot of fun. Get to experience it again, and the story was really good, and the gameplay, it was, because it's old school turn-based combat, so it's back to what I loved as a kid and still love today. And graphically, it looks really good. Square Enix gave it that HD 2D 3D remake that they do with like Octopath Traveler and all those games along that line that they've done that with, that look really nice, right?
Yeah, I love when I love the old JRPGs that did like the companions, and as you got more companions, the line of people following you just grew, and that was cool to me back, the old Star Ocean days and all that stuff, I'm like,
exactly. And that's what they do here. Your companions follow you right behind you in a line, and whenever you some outfits, not all of them, but some outfits do change the look of them, and you can also change the look of them later through a cosmetic area. And they have like a whole monster battling system that's like this little arena where you can find monsters out in the world, and then you go to this arena and battle with them and stuff. And so it's a lot of fun. It's a really great game. Like, if you want to do everything, like get all the side quests, because after you beat the game, there's also an extended mode that they added on. That's even a harder challenge that you can go through. But I mean, ultimately, like, it took me 40 hours to complete the game totally, and that was doing all the story quests and doing some exploration and stuff. But there's still more stuff to explore. And what I've read online is if you want to explore and kind of complete everything, it's about 70 to 80 hour game to complete everything. So there's a lot of content, especially from what it originally was and all the content that they added to the game. So yeah, that was my number 3. And I thought it was really good. They did a really good job. I'm really excited to play the next 1 and 2 HD 3D. They released this one first. People might be wondering why. The reason why the third one came out first is because that's the Edric storyline. Number 3 is actually the first one in that storyline. So, whereas 1 was
Good
like
game.
second, and second one was the third. So it's really weird. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah. So let's go through our number 2, Shane. Number 2.
I am gonna say Helldivers 2. I don't think out of all the games we played this year, even Space Marines 2, Pat, I don't think we laughed as hard as we did in Helldivers 2. I don't think we had as remotely the same experiences in Helldivers 2 or in Space Marines as we did in Helldivers 2. I think Helldivers 2 is, and don't get me wrong, I love Space Marines 2 and I love playing it. Just a big badass brute is great. But just Helldivers 2, there was just so many laughs and so much fun and so much anger on the goddamn droids. and it was just there was memories built. That's what multiplayer games should be, memories. Because I mean, I remember the first time I was like, oh, I can bring down this thing here, and it dropped out 4,000 freaking landmines, and God dang it. You guys running through there tiptoeing, bugs blowing up. That game was such a surprise hit between, the original and what they did here, and the co-op and not the story per se, but the stories we told each other as we played it. I'm going to breed with the bugs, become one with them, and lead them. Just stupid crap like that. We had so much fun. So I had to put Helldivers 2 in there. I had Space Marines 2 in my list as well, but I had 2 other games. Like an honorable mention would be Sandland. I had to take some things out because I loved those games, but I had to think about the memory and experiences that I had playing them. So to me, the Helldivers 2 gave me all the laughter and the just silliness that I love from a good multiplayer, especially a cooperative game. So Helldivers 2, baby.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we spent a lot more time with Helldivers 2, but we had a lot longer span of no games, I think,
that is
that one. But we did play a lot of Helldivers 2. I think, Nick, you and I made it to Helldive level on the bug side. I was pretty sure. Like, we ran a couple of them missions.
I think so.
We all did.
Not on the robots, though. We never made it that high on the robots, but yeah.
Them robots are bastards.
Yeah. But yeah, fun game. Friendly fire made it even more fun. Shane loved them turrets. Them damn turrets.
I'm a turret man, baby.
Don't know friend or foe. No FOF on those.
Oh, my turrets know exactly what you guys say behind my back. That's why they hit you.
Oh, you'll be pleasantly enjoyed to hear this. But if you've looked at anything Helldivers 2 and recently, the new space station has no FOF neither. It will bombard the shit out of you. It doesn't care.
That makes me happy. Yeah, Helldivers 2 was a well done and fun game, and Sony hasn't fully ruined it yet. So go out there and enjoy it. Pat,
not fully.
What do you got? Number 2, baby. What you got?
I mean, what does Nick got for number 2?
Oh, you want to go to me?
Well, I mean, I did. Well,
no, you did 3.
I guess so. I guess I can do my number 2.
I did 2.
We can keep the order.
You did 2.
My number 2 was hard because I had 3 games that were runner up, like, not to my game of the year, but like third runner up. And this one was one that Nick told me about that I had no clue was even out there. And that's that Kunitsu-Gami Path of the Goddess. That game was fun as hell.
Yeah.
And it was hard too. It was freaking hard because there's a lot of strategy to it and a lot of different ways to play. Because it gets really hard after the first few levels where you have multiple entry points in and things like that, and a lot of units to start managing, and then the flow of key or whatever the money is that you got to use to spend doesn't really pick up very quickly, I felt. But it was a really good, interesting strategy game. It's really, when you first start playing, like, this isn't a strategy game, and then you're like, oh well, now there's more than one way into my base, and now there's more than 2 ways into my base, and so it's fun. I really enjoyed it. And to me, it was a sleeper hit because I had no clue about this game until Nick had mentioned it. So if you haven't played Kunitsu-Gami, if I hope that's how you pronounce it, to me, it was a surprise hit by Capcom, just out of the blue for me. But it was good, really good, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Put a lot of time into it. And the reason it's on my list is because I was not expecting it, and so it gave me a lot of play time for something that I wasn't expecting to play at all. Never even heard of it until Nick had mentioned it. So Nick had mentioned it, and I downloaded it, and I think was it on Game Pass?
Game Pass.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I'll give it a chance, and I was like thoroughly surprised and just played the hell out of it, you know.
And as soon as you said Nick said it, I knew exactly which game you were talking about, because that was a really
that always seems to happen, right?
Fun.
We get something outside of the blue, like
love.
He's like, you guys should try this 13 Sentinels game. I'm like, what the hell is this? And I'm like, oh my god, this is freaking amazing.
Yep. All right.
I always try to find those, those odd games, because sometimes you can find some odd games that are really.
Nick's
really
our
good.
resident play everything, and he'll tell us what's good or what was bad. So
yeah. And try new crap, because Nick will find the oddest game.
I will play the oddest stuff,
and it will be enjoyable as shit. I mean, Nick's pulled us out of our comfort zones. I mean, there's so many games I would have never played before. And then, hey, let's try it. Okay. So there we go.
Yeah. Sometimes it's good to look at other ones. So my number 2 is actually in the Game of the Year list. It's not in the Game of the Year, but it is nominated for one of the entries, and that is Animal Well. Animal Well is a fantastic indie game. It's actually nominated for Best Indie Game in Game of the Year awards. I wasn't expecting to play Animal Well. It came out, and then it came out on PlayStation Plus, which I have, and for free on the day and date that it released. And I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll try it out. And I played it straight for 2 days and beat it and got every achievement and everything in it, because I absolutely loved Animal Well. It was so much fun. It's like a puzzle. It's a weird game. But
you asshole gatekeeper. You did not tell us about this game at all.
I never heard of it. Now I'm looking.
No, I just looked at it on Steam. I'm like, oh, that's really cool looking. And I'm like,
it's a really cool game.
You jerk off. Really didn't even mention the game. He's gatekeeping this one.
That's why he was late, Pat. He's playing a damn cool game, not telling us.
I just looked at that and I'm like, I have got to buy this, because I just watched, and it's by the people who make Dredge Inscription. Yes. I'm like, yes, please. I want, and just watch. I watched 15 seconds of the trailer and I'm like, I gotta get this.
Oh
one.
Man, when I played it, like the first, I installed it one night because I was like, I'll try it out, and I was hooked immediately. Like I played it all night, and then I played it the next day and beat it. Got every achievement. I've never gotten that on PlayStation. I got every the platinum trophy, everything, because I was like, this game is so much fun. Like after I got done playing it, beating it, and doing everything in it, I wanted to keep playing, but there was nothing else to do besides play the game.
This game has a 91 Metacritic score.
Yeah, it's a fantastic game,
and overwhelmingly positive on Steam.
It's a fantastic game. You should try it out.
I'm getting this game. And
sorry, I didn't mean to sleep on that one. Yeah. But
Animal Well dropped more turrets on you.
He wanted to surprise us for the Game Awards. He's like, hey, guess what I played? Something back in May of this year.
Yeah, I played it when it came out, yeah.
It didn't say Jack.
I might have said something.
You are losing your title as the gaming guru for us that lets us know about the good games. We just gave him kudos for letting us know about all these cool smaller games or something we never heard of, and now he's like, how about this Animal Well? And I'm like, what the hell is Animal Well?
But yes, check it out. It's a great game. All right, Shane, number 1. This is not Game of the Year. This is number 1, the one before Game of the Year.
Yes. This is the second runner-up. I have a feeling I'm not the only one, but my number 1 is Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. I think that game, nostalgia-wise, unbelievable. It was so good for the nostalgia. Gameplay, top-notch, tight, fun, varied, interesting. just so well put together. It was a surprise, for one, that it didn't suck because of who put it out. Ubisoft. That's a 4-letter word anymore. But it was a catch you off guard game that we played. And I think even Pat loved it. It's a little twitchy, but I think even Pat, if I remember right, you loved it. It was just a home run game. Now, like I said, my list wouldn't probably competed last year, but this game here was probably the closest, one of the closest on my list that could have competed last year. I think it's phenomenal. I think they did such a surprisingly good job. It didn't feel milked out. It didn't feel stretched out for no reason. I didn't feel like I had to go find 40 billion hidden objects to complete the game. It felt like a solid A to B, a little bit back to A, a little bit back to B, a little bit up to C, because sometimes you got to go up and down. And that was it. It just felt like a very well done, tight, wonderful game. And after release, they just disbanded the developers, and we'll never see a sequel like that done again. So way to go, Ubisoft. All right, Pat, my man.
Yeah.
Number one on your second runner up, Skull and Bones. No.
Skull and Bones did not make my list at all. Like I said, you guys are to blame for that because you wouldn't play enough with me. So
sorry, I had to pull the Band-Aid.
I like that game. I'm not the biggest Metroidvania style gamer, but this one's a good like lower level into that. It's not as difficult as like most Metroidvanias and stuff, but it's got the whole same concept of side scrolling and coming back. And so to me, it was a good one. I thoroughly enjoyed that one. This one was really tough for me because now the next one after this is going to be our game of the year choice after this one, right? So it left two games that I spent probably equal amount of time playing in that, and it was really hard for me to pick the runner up, which means that even the one that it competed with didn't even make second or third in my list because the way I try to structure my list is like a smaller unknown game and that stuff. So, and this was really hard for me because I had two games that I spent a lot of time into. That's not my game of the year pick. And the winner is Dragon's Dogma 2. I absolutely love that. I think these two guys were more excited for that game than I was before it came out. And I'm pretty sure that I played more of it than they did when it came out because I'm talking about this. I'm like, hey, I read somewhere that this one guy's in the first one because I didn't play the first one because, it wasn't something in my repertoire back then. And I can't go back and play it because the graphics look like crap on the original one, and so all the stuff in this game was new to me, like climbing the monsters and stabbing them in the head with your sword and doing acrobats and stuff to get off of them and stuff and having your party attack. It kind of reminded me of like the old school Dragon Age stuff a little bit, So to me, this game was fresh, new, everything was cool concepts, beat it, all this stuff. And I'm looking forward to the DLC that was kind of leaked and stuff like that. I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed Dragon's Dogma 2. And for me, it beat out Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. That was my one that was really hard for me in my head to go, which one? Because I probably spent more time in Like a Dragon. But Like a Dragon got very repetitive, So, but like I said, Dragon's Dogma 2 for me is my runner-up for Game of the Year, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And the only reason I actually paid any attention to it is because of Nick and Shane, because they talked about how great the first one was, right? So for this one was for me a really great game. Loved it. Played the crap out of it, So, Nick, what was your Game of the Year runner-up?
Yeah. Before I get that, Prince of Persia was a great game. I really liked that one. It's not in my list, but I thought it was a great game. The only reason why it's not in my list primarily is because I don't want to give Ubisoft any sort of kudos because they disbanded the team afterwards. So I'm really pissed at them. Right. They finally made a game worth playing. And then they decided, you know what? No. So you know what? You don't get any kudos. Kudos to the team that made it, but not to you, Ubisoft. You suck. And then Dragon's Dogma 2. Yeah, that was a great game. My number one is one that we heard already, and it was Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess. I loved that game. Yep. Just like Pat said, I beat that game. I did, all the missions and, all the extras in there and everything. I absolutely love that game. I think it is a sleeper hit. I think a lot of people probably pass it up because maybe how the gameplay is, or it starts out a little slow, and it's a weird game. But once you start getting into like I said, not very, you don't have to get very far, but once you get a little further in and you start unlocking new unit types, and there's multiple paths, and you start setting up, like, you have time limit to set up barriers and different defenses that you can only set up a few at a time, right, before the monsters are going to come. So you got to choose what defenses, how far am I going to take the princess, right? Where do I want to put her at? Then where do I want to put all the people? And what defenses do I want to put up? And you got to think of all of this and think about where the monster is going to come from and how am I going to reinforce that area and with what units and things like that. So as you get going and further, it gets more difficult because you really got to start thinking about how you want to set everything up and how you're going to execute everything, right? And make sure that everything hopefully checks out okay, right? And you don't
how many turns is it going to take if I can get to the princess to the Torii Gate and stuff like that, right?
And where do I want to stop her? Because I don't want to, like, sometimes you would set it and she would start running that way and you're like, okay, I'm not going to make it to the gate. I want to stop her before I get to here because there'll be a barrier there. Then I can put a defense up right in front of her, right? But if I stop her here, this is going to be like, she's wide open and this sucks. Like, this is not a good place to sit her. And I did that a couple of times where I'm like, crap, because I noticed that she stops. I didn't, because you can stop her, but I was off doing other things and then noticed she stopped like right in the center of a path that had no defenses. So it was like I just had to center around her and just, kind of create. But it was a really good game. I think it was a sleeper hit. I don't know. Sometimes Capcom and other developers out there will make games like this, and I wish they got more attention because I like it when developers kind of go out of their comfort zone and make something just unique and different. And I like to play those types of games. They're not always hits when they do that, but sometimes they do make some really cool stuff. But the problem is they make really cool stuff and then they never come back to it because it just didn't do well, sales wise or whatever, even though it was a really cool game. Like this one, I don't know if we'll get another one like it. Capcom makes a lot of cool games that I don't know if we'll ever see the light of day again. So I don't know. Lost Planet. I'm a huge fan of Lost Planet. Not necessarily the third one as much, but 1 and 2 definitely. And I would love to see a new Lost Planet that was more akin to the first and second. But I don't see Capcom ever, revisiting that franchise. So unfortunately, but yeah, Kunitsu-Gami was a really great game. So, all right, we will go around in Game of the Year. Shane, I guess we'll start. Let's go in the same order, I guess. What's your Game of the Year?
All right. Well, for the 25th year in a row, Final Fantasy VIII is Game of the Year. No. You guys think you can guess?
It's been only an odd year. Is it actually in the nominee list?
No.
Then not in the nominee list.
All right. I don't want you guys to hurt yourself, so I'll go ahead and announce it.
Skull and Bones.
And you'll probably disagree, but kiss my butt because it's my list.
I disagree.
Cinema Saga, Hellblade 2.
Okay.
I think that game story was magnificent. I think it was so well done and enthralling, and I'm just basing the story right now. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. The concept, ideal, and the mechanics they use to carry the story, which is the sound, the audio is what carries the game, not the combat, not the gameplay, of the combat. It's the actual audio that carries that game. It's an amazing story. I love the original. I think the original story was fantastic, and this one here doubled down on it. It's about psychosis and schizophrenia and loss, and but it's also got the craziness of mythology falling behind it. And stunningly beautiful game. I think it's probably the best looking game this year in my book. I mean, even on Xbox, it was freaking tastic just to look at. But it's the audio. The audio made that game what it was. The way the story carries the main character Senua from A to B in that game was all in your head. It was being played into your ears the entire time, listening to her different thoughts under different circumstances, under different voices, under different reasoning. I thought it was fan-frickin-tastic. I think I know this one didn't do as well, and it sucks, but you don't get a game that is that inventive, that is really, really good. That's trying to do things different that are really that good. It's like, a lot of people like, what's the walking simulator by Kojima, Death Stranding. That was doing different things and trying things that were a little different than any other game. And yay, but I don't think it carried for me. This game did things with the audio that made this game wonderful. And the characters in the game also helped bring across not just Senua, but the people you run into, your enemies especially. The enemies bosses were really well done and interesting, and I love that. I won't drag it out, but I don't think a lot of people gave it the try that it needed to get you grabbed, to get you hooked on it, because it does kind of start off slow, because it is a lot of story developing gameplay at the very beginning. It's not a lot of combat, and that's hard for people to grab onto. Me personally, I need more combat. That's why I like more shooters, because I just need that boom, boom, boom. But this game, it's all about character and story, and that audio was just, it's what grabbed me, and I loved it. I loved the original, and this one here was just, it grabbed me by the gotchas, and it's my game of the year. I think it's worthy of another game. Whether or not they ever do it, I doubt it. But I think it is worthy of another game because it was that well done. So, Pat, numero uno.
Say, Shane,
go ahead.
I want to say that that's fine. Hellblade 2, but you can't say, you said it wasn't in the game of the year list, but the voice actress for Senua is in
that is
the nominations.
True. She is.
So you lied to us.
No, I did.
It's not in for game of the year.
No, but it is.
But she is in it because she was freaking wonderful. I'm trying not to. I used all my profanity in a video previously done, so I'm trying to save up for the next one. That Microsoft pisses me off. But no. But yes, Nick is right. The young lady who voiced Senua is nominated for a voice actress award. I can't remember the exact title of the award, but she was wonderful. The audio that she had to do in that game for that game, I bet it messed with her a little bit because it was super well done. So, but Pat, game of the year is.
So, I actually did pick something on the Game of the Year awards list because I have to, I wanted to make sure that, I'm pretty sure you can guess, So, and for me, it was because it was the thing I was the most excited for, and also didn't let me down at all. And there's arguments about should this be on the list or should it not be on the list, which should just narrow it down completely for you because it's a DLC. But Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, to me, it felt like a more fleshed out game than just a DLC because I spent a crap ton of time in that. Now, probably not as much as I spent in Elden Ring, obviously, but there was a lot of stuff in this one, a lot of cool stuff. The ending was pretty interesting, I beat it. I beat it by myself, beat it with Nick. We played a little co-op action in it, little mod action to co-op it. And that was really fun to co-op it because, the game is difficult, right? And it's meant to be difficult. But it's also gorgeous. It's also got great gameplay based off weapons and, and your play style. And I've said this before, but I am not a Souls-like player at all. I don't like the Souls-like games, but this game is it's Souls light. It's not Souls like, it's Souls light in my opinion. It's not as difficult. And it's just super fun. Thoroughly enjoyed every bit of it. I wish they would actually build in co-op into the game right instead of doing the drop in, drop out thing. But like I said, Nick and I got a mod that allowed us just to run in the game together the whole time. It was really hard for me because there was 2 other games in the list that were probably as good, but I didn't put enough time. I didn't put that much time into them. The other 2 that's on my list, that we may mention or may not. But it was a really lax year for like major, like super excited games and stuff. I spent a whole lot of time in. I'll be honest, this year I spent a lot of time in MMOs. I went back and played more EVE Online, played more WoW, just did stuff like that, just to to pass the time. There was a lot more lax in the gaming this year that I just didn't spend hundreds and hundreds of hours in a game, which Elden Ring, Shadows of the Erdtree, I spent a crap ton of time in there. It's probably the game I spent the most time in this year outside of maybe like EVE Online or something. Just going back and trying to find all the secrets and do the cool stuff. So I see something cool online after I beat the game. I'm like, I didn't know that. Let me go try to find that and go find that and be like, hey, Nick, we should do this. We should do that, So to me, it was Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, just because I needed to pick something on their list. And obviously it probably was my game of the year, to be honest with you. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Loved the game. Loved the original. So for me, that was kind of a no-brainer in their top pick. What about you, Nick? What is your game of the year?
It's a DLC. It should not count.
Says who? Jeff Keighley doesn't set any rules, obviously.
Jeff
You
Keighley can't dress his fucking self. He goes to Liberace's, dry cleaning.
No, he stopped wearing the flashy jackets, which is what's knocked him down a peg. He no longer has the cool jackets every year.
That's true. I haven't seen his what's
sequin
the
jacket or his smoking jacket,
bedazzled crap.
Bedazzled, yeah.
But
so Nick,
no, DLC shouldn't count in my opinion. That's my opinion. But you're not wrong about what you're saying. Just
I went against their list, and out of their list, that's my game of the year. But it's probably also up there for me too. I will admit that it's up there for me. Nick, did you pick something on their list, and what is it?
Yes, I did, and it is Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree as my game of the year. I agree. I don't think DLC should be in there either. But kind of like Pat said, thinking back at like, and kind of like I said at the beginning, this year was really slim pickings on like super great games, right? There was a lot of good games. Don't get me wrong. It's just like games that really grabbed my attention. I think Shadow of the Erdtree was fantastic. Me and Pat played it together with, like you were saying, with the co-op mod. And I also played it by myself as well, in a separate character. And I had an absolute blast, especially playing it co-op. I mean, that was fantastic to go through there together and, and everything like that. And I think the mod we had also upped the difficulty. Well, I guess it does that anyway, but it kind of upped the difficulty because you're with another player the entire time. So it does it because it thinks you're by yourself. And so that way it would kind of match it up to be more difficult. So that way we're just like steamrolling everything. Right. But it was just a lot of fun to play. The game entirely was super fun to play. I think I put, again, kind of like Pat said, I think I put the most time into that this year. Elden Ring, when it came out, I put the most time into it. And the Shadow of the Erdtree, even though it is DLC, this DLC was huge. I mean, it was like a whole new, almost the size of the original map of the original game, like almost, right? Maybe like the half of it, maybe, or something like that. It's huge. Like the map is gigantic, and there's so many secrets and so many things. Like it's almost a brand new game, essentially. I mean, there's just all sorts of new stuff in it, and new weapons and armor sets and new enemies and locations and just all sorts of cool stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it was. I didn't want to put it there because it is a DLC, but I'm like, really? I don't know what other game I would put up there.
I figured you did as well. So, and I also prepared this, but I'm going to ask you without any prep. If Elden Ring wasn't in the list, what would you pick out of their list?
Out of their list?
Yeah, their list. Because that's kind of where I did that too, was their list. Would you pick Metaphor, Final Fantasy VII, Rebirth, Black Myth, Wukong, Balarto, or Astrobot. Balatro, excuse me.
I would probably say Metaphor out of all that.
I'm in Metaphor, but I had time to prep. That's why I want to see what Nick picked.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably Metaphor, just because. I mean, I love Balartro. I've played a ton of that, but it is a very, it's a smaller contained game, right? It's got a lot of replayability, but and it's a great game. Black Myth Wukong is a really great game too.
Yep.
But it is fundamentally just a Souls-like game, right?
It's kind of really short too, I thought.
Yeah, but I thought it's a really good game though.
Yeah.
I mean, because we get a lot of Souls likes and some of them ain't that great, but they did a really good job with this one, right? So sometimes some companies knock it out of the park making a Souls like game. Astrobot, I haven't played it, so I couldn't really tell you, what it is. And then Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I enjoyed Rebirth.
It was okay.
I enjoyed more of the story of like the story beats and stuff, like the side quests and various things like that got very repetitive. So it's like, if I were to play it again, I would just want to follow story beats more than anything. And I think it would be a better experience because every time you went to a new location, it was like almost the same exact collect these things, grab this, grab that. So Metaphor is just really cool. It's very kind of Persona, but set in a different, and Atlas makes great RPGs. The only thing with Atlas games is you got to have the time to invest.
Lots of RP.
Yes, they are very long games, and you have to have the time.
And they artificially slow you down by making it where you can't complete a dungeon in a single run because you run out of mana and there's not enough ways to recharge it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you there. My only complaint is in Final Fantasy VII, the funnest part of Final Fantasy VII for me was Queen's Gambit.
The rest of it, was great.
I'm like, whatever. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I think in 7 remake, like I was thinking back, like if they got, I mean, I understand they to put all the other stuff in there to kind of inflate like different things.
Filler? You mean filler? Final filler?
Lots of games put filler.
Rebirth has filler. I would agree with you on that one. Remake,
but
good.
If you were to follow, because I think the story is really good. I mean, I love the story of 7, right? And I think the story in Rebirth is really good too, because it basically follows that, right? And you're just going to the same story beats, a little bit different, but it's same concept. And so I think ultimately it's story beat wise, if you just follow the story beats, it's a great game, right? Music's great. All of the voice act, there's I think what is it? Aerith, the voice actress for Aerith, she won some Golden Joystick Awards. I think she won Best Supporting Actress for that. And then I think, or maybe just Best Actress, I can't remember. But anyway, and then Final Fantasy won like 4 awards at that one. But I think the narrative and, the music's always good in Final Fantasy. You can't go wrong with the music.
All right, Shane, since you picked something not on the list, what would you pick that's on the list for your game of the year? Who's going to win it?
Metaphor, I would have picked.
So you would have picked Metaphor?
I would have picked Metaphor. Do I think Metaphor will win? No.
I think
I think Metaphor is too. I think Metaphor is too different to win game of the year.
Too narrow of an audience. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I mean,
I think Balatro is too, right?
Exactly.
And Astrobot's
those games
singular
are
console.
Niche. I wouldn't say those games are niche, but they're closer to niche than anything else on
I think Metaphor
is
a niche. It is a set group of people who are going to play that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think it has a little bit more of an audience than like Dragon Quest does. I think that developer's big enough to hit a little bit larger crowd with their product. But if I'm going to guess who is going to win, it's Elden Ring. I really do. I think
game spawned so much internet hype and internet like everything after it released, and it was just going on for months.
The original game exploded, and when the DLC was announced, what's it? 2 years later, I believe, almost.
I think it was almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. And good game.
And when it was announced, I think the DLC excitement alone was bigger than the original game announcement.
I think when I think you and I started playing Elden Ring again right before the Erdtree came out, so we could get ready, just refresh us up and play through again.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of game it is.
And we beat it again.
We beat again, yeah. Because we had to put the co-op mod in that one so that we could play through it.
We beat the original Elden Ring before Erdtree came out. And then
And that's the kind of game that is. That game grabbed people. I'm not a Souls gamer typically. Pat's not, but Nick is. And, if this game didn't have co-op, and I don't know if we would have enjoyed it as much, but the way the co-op worked was the only downfall of the game. I mean, even I was getting into this game. I just don't have all the time that these guys have, unfortunately. But I love the mod that we played. I couldn't finish it because the mod had too many issues, and then just fell off playing other things and doing other things, and then you guys jump back in. But it's that kind of a game that grabs people. I think is going to win because it grabbed people that's not Souls players. That's how good that game is. It grabbed the non-Souls society and hooked them. Pat is not only a client, he's the president of the Grab Me by the Souls games. That's why I think it'll win. I mean,
yeah,
Final Fantasy VII won't win. That I would almost, depending on the size of the check provided to Jeff Keighley, I don't think Final Fantasy VII will win.
It's going to be an upset.
I think if any game other than Elden Ring hits Game of the Year, I think it will piss people off. I think it will. Because then it's going to be, people are going to go, wait a minute, that's a load of shit. That game should not have won. This game should have won.
Astrobot has deeper pockets. They win.
I'm surprised that game's even in the list. I know I've not played it, so I'm not going to dog on it.
I don't understand why it's in the list. It shouldn't be in the list, but because Jeff Keighley doesn't tell everybody what his priorities are for putting games on the list. Because in my opinion, this is just an opinion, but I think games like Dragon's Dogma 2 and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth should be on there, in the list because but the problem is they were too close to the beginning of the year. They came out and they were forgotten.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like we were talking at the very beginning, it's not Game of the Year. It's Game of the last 8 to 10 months.
You could drop a game, and because Nick mentioned this, Stalker 2 just came out. The Indiana Jones is yet to come out this year, but will be out this year. Those games could be amazing games, but they're not in the running for next year because they were in 2024, Christmas time.
Game of the Year should not be till January, like you guys said.
January, February, right? To let the games come out and then to give everybody time to vote at the end, middle of the end. So Game Awards should be like the end of January with voting starting in the middle. So that all the 2020, all the games come out in a year, calendar year, because and then things just get forgotten at this point. So it is what it is. I think we all put what we wanted out there, but I think that we need to know what the Jeff Keighley's criteria is for Game of the Year so that we can argue the point or not the point. If we want to stay in lockstep with them rather than what's our favorite, right? Because we're just arguing for our favorite. And I think Elden Ring is my favorite of this year, even though it's on his list and it's a DLC, which there's argument for that it should or shouldn't be on the list.
No, I think it's an argument. I think it's a fact. Shouldn't be.
It's larger than your Game of the Year game.
I think it shouldn't be either.
I love my Game of the Year, though.
I agree. It probably shouldn't be there because it's a DLC.
But here's the thing. I will give the Shadow of the Erdtree this. The scope and the size of that game was larger than a lot of the other games out this year by quite a bit. The fanfare for it was vastly larger than almost any other game on the list, even Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So that's the only reason I think that game should be allowed. Size, fanfare, the excitement. I think those are valid reasons that it could be listed for the Game of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, for a game that's frustratingly hard, like I don't know how many times we fought Consort Radon until I finally beat him by myself, and with Nick, I fought him way more by myself. But when Nick and I beat him, It was a span of a few days. We didn't beat him the first half a dozen times we tried him on the first night. So,
but that's what makes a game of the year. It's those stories you could tell, the happiness you got from it. You guys won't agree with me on my choice, and that's okay because it's my choice. But if you ask me about that game, I have stories, I have excitement, I have passion about what I'm going to say. It's like Call of Duty Black Ops 6. I fully understand why nobody would put that in their list, but it's the moments that I get from it, and like I said, it's really the nostalgia kind of 80s beats to that game, along with the really well done mission levels. And it might just be because the last one sucked so bad. This one really didn't have anything to, worry about comparatively. So that's what makes a good game of the year. It's the stories you could talk about. That's why Space Marines 2 and Helldivers 2 are on mine and Pat's list, because we had great times together. We had laughter. We had, all sorts of craziness that, we could tell you about. That's what makes game of the year. And then, Nick does what Nick does. Nick's our Nintendo. He just does what he does.
Yep. Sometimes he remembers to tell us about cool games.
Yeah. Sometimes he just says, screw those guys.
Sometimes.
I'm doing it by myself.
I was so addicted to this one game, I forgot to tell you guys about it.
I could have swore I said something, but maybe not.
I'm pretty sure me and Pat try almost everything you say.
We at least look at it and be like,
exactly.
And I looked at that and I'm like, what? I have never seen this.
No, not at all. So
looking at the games of the year list, like all the different categories and stuff, like I'm really disappointed that they didn't have Grand Blue Fantasy Relink in one of these.
Yeah, you and I played. We all played that, but Nick, you and I put quite a bit of time into Grand Blue Fantasy together.
But the problem with Grand Blue is it's still more in the niche market of the game. Who is the developer on that one? I can't remember.
That one's Psy Games, Platinum Games.
Okay.
Yeah, Psy Games and Platinum.
So I mean, that one I would put more on the niche end of it. So I don't think that one hit market like Metaphor did.
It hit at the beginning of January, at the end of January. That's why it's
that's
forgotten.
True too. I mean,
yeah.
Placement in the calendar is extremely important for a video game, a movie, anything,
because that game got like 9s and
it
got great reviews if I remember right.
9 out of 10s and stuff, 90s and stuff.
It was great. I mean, I loved it, and then me and Pat played a ton of the co-op stuff after.
Yeah,
after you beat the main storyline. Yeah, you beat the storyline. Then you can play the co-op.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think I want to say we finished all the co-op.
I think we did finish all the boss battles.
That was the problem with the game. Though it wasn't fully cooperative. That was one of my only.
Well, yeah, you had to
complaints.
beat the game, and then you could play all the co-op missions.
And to me, that just takes away from the game.
Well, you could play co-op missions as you progressed, I guess.
Yeah, after you get
majority of them got unlocked at the end. Yeah.
So yeah.
But overall, I think this year is not a great year.
Yeah, a little boring.
Decent year.
Yeah, there wasn't any really super standout games this year that, like I said, that really stood out to me. But there were a lot of great games.
Do you think I said this, I don't think my list would compete with last year's or the year before.
I think there was more.
Do you think your list would compete with last year?
I think there were more bombastic or fantastical games that came out in last year and the year before that, right? This year's been a little slow on some really just like out of the park games. And that's not saying there hasn't been great games. It's just like games that really just like, wow, this is amazing. It's been very small, right?
Yes.
Because like besides my game of the year, if you look at my list is a bunch of what people would consider indie titles, or I mean, Dragon Quest 3, Kunitsu, which Shane or Pat also had Kunitsu-Gami and Animal Well. Animal Well's nominated, but
yeah, I mean, we had last year we had Baldur's Gate 3, and we had Alan Wake 2, and You had Tears of the Kingdom came out last year.
There was a lot of
last
big
year was
contenders
much
last
better.
year.
And we had Resident Evil 4 last year too.
Oh yeah, that
Yep.
too. There was a lot of big contenders.
We had a
last
lot
year.
of big titles last year, and then also Spider-Man 2 came out last year. So
Yeah.
So we had a large list last year of like games that I would agree that all the nominees were like, yeah, these are banger games. And this year, all the nominees, I'm like, I don't agree with like 2 of these, maybe 3, if I'm really being honest.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of great games, a lot of good games that came out this year. Ones that I enjoyed. Unicorn Overlord, which I think is nominated for something in here. That was a really good game.
Yeah, I like that one.
Rise of Ronin. That was a really fun game. I don't know if that one was nominated for anything. I had that listed down. The Tomb Raider, it's funny, I had this listed down just because I made a list of games that I really enjoyed this year. And Tomb Raider 1 through 3 remaster, I really liked. It's just a remaster, but I really enjoyed the remaster.
Yeah, I don't think remasters belong on the list. Remakes,
no, I don't either,
can make an argument for it.
I put it on there just like I was just listing out games that I really enjoyed this year.
Right.
Yeah.
There's stuff I enjoy. Like I really enjoyed playing the freaking, oh my God, we were just playing it the other day. I really enjoyed going back and playing State of Decay too, but
yeah,
that didn't release this year or anything.
That didn't release this year, no.
Nope. But you know what? It doesn't matter. Apparently DLCs, remasters, all that crap's allowed now.
I would agree with Shay. No, they should make a rule of no remasters and no DLC. Remakes you can put on there because obviously it's technically a brand new game.
Right. Because
they could do a remaster of the year if they wanted to do that. At least
that's the only category. And maybe a DLC of the year.
Exactly.
That stuff in its own category.
And that's where Elden Ring should have went into. Is DLC of the year.
The DLC of the year would be a good category because of games like Elden Ring that just they didn't knock it out of the goddamn park. They knocked it off the planet because nobody I've ever seen ever that excited for a DLC ever on any game as much as that
had to have
is.
DLC.
Yeah. So yeah, I think this year was fine for games.
It was fine.
But
we'll see what next year.
The year's not over.
No. Still got Indiana Jones.
For Game of the Year, it does. It's over.
For the Game of the Year.
For Jeff Keighley Game Awards, it's over.
Yeah, which is a load of donkey ass.
Stalker 2 is out now, which I've got a couple hours into it, and it's pretty fun so far. It's
Indiana Jones is coming out soon.
And then Indiana Jones come out in December.
I'm pretty excited for that. I was scared at first, and the more I watch, the more I listen. I give Troy Baker big props because he does got a damn good indie impersonation going on. So hopefully the game doesn't blow chunks, and Microsoft don't give a shit if their games suck or not anymore. I don't care. But hopefully it doesn't because I love Indiana Jones, and the last 2 movies blew ass. So hopefully the game will make up for something.
Yeah, I hope it's good. I'm looking forward to it and hoping it's good. It's Machine Gun Games, which they usually make some good stuff. The Wolfenstein games were really good that they made.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping this ends up being a really good game.
Yep.
Here's hoping.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, right? And I don't know. Those are the 2 besides Stalker 2 and that. There's the only other ones I saw that were like big releases this year. There are some other games coming out, but I didn't see anything else that really like was a huge release.
No, me neither.
Games. But anyway, you guys got anything else you want to add to this?
Happy Thanksgiving. Hope you had a good one.
There you go. Let us know if you're still there, if you're still awake. Let us know down in the comments below. What are your games of the year? What is your favorite games? What games really excited you this year? And maybe what you're looking forward to next year. If there's any titles that are coming out next year that you're looking forward to, let us know down in the comments below. Other than that, thanks for watching, everybody. This has been ITD's Game of the Year. Hit the subscribe button. We'll see you later.
See ya.